So as you can tell from the title of this video, it's been about a year since I started shooting 35mm film. It's really become my favorite hobby whenever I have some spare time. And now that I'm a little bit more experienced than I was when I filmed my film Q&A, I'm finally getting into scanning my own negatives. I've been keeping my negatives organized in a binder with these sheet protectors since I started this whole thing, because I knew I eventually want to be able to develop and scan on my own. But I'm just going to focus on scanning first since I don't feel quite ready to start developing. I've been wanting to rescan a particular roll of film, which I did do a video on, and that was a roll of Cinestill 800T. When I posted this video, my photo lab had sent me the files with a red streak running through all of my photos, and because I was super new to shooting film at the time, I just automatically assumed that it was my fault. I thought I might have loaded it incorrectly or something, and I just promised myself I would do better next time. Right after I posted that video, I had gotten an email from my photo lab, and they pretty much told me that their scanner wasn't working that day. That was the reason for the red streak, and then they sent me updated files. When I compared the two, it made me realize the importance of obviously having a good photo lab to develop, but also a quality scan. This led me to saving up to purchase my own scanner, which is the Epson Perfection V600. A friend of mine recommended this to me, and it was on sale over the holidays, so here we are, hopefully saving money by just paying for film developing costs and scanning everything myself. The computer programs that I used are Epson Scan 2, which I got off their website, and Adobe Lightroom Classic for all my post-processing. Before I get to scanning, this is more of a first impression experiment that I wanted to film rather than an in-depth tutorial. I will go through the scanning settings, but a basic knowledge of Lightroom is pretty important for this, which is where our sponsor Skillshare comes in. I've made several videos partnering with Skillshare in the past, but in case you're not familiar with it, it's an online learning community for people interested in taking creative classes by inspiring instructors about pretty much whatever you're interested in. I spend a lot of time in the film and video, photography, and lifestyle section, but if there's something that you're specifically looking to learn in 2022, it's very easy to look for it on the website. I found an incredibly detailed Lightroom tutorial by Tabitha Park called Photo Editing in Adobe Photoshop Lightroom, and it is a fantastic beginner's guide. It's almost 2 hours long, but it really does go over everything you need to know. If you're thinking of taking the class or just want to check it out, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can start exploring your creativity today. But let's get back to scanning. This is the little window that pops up with the Epson Scan 2, and quickly moving through the settings, the scanner is Epson Perfection V600. I'll do photograph under scan settings, and then photo mode. The document source should be transparency unit and not scanner glass. This setting has to be selected in order to scan film negatives. The scanner cover also has to be removed or else you won't be able to pick the setting. So the first time I tried this out, I figured I'd try the color negative film since that's what type of film this is. Image type, I chose 48-bit color versus 24-bit, hoping that would give me a wider range of color to work with. And then resolution, I chose 2400 dpi or dots per inch. And the higher this number is, usually that results in a sharper, more detailed scan, but the higher the resolution, the larger the file size, the longer it takes to scan. So this was the highest DPI I thought I could get away with. Scanning quality high. Color management I wanted off. I didn't want the scanner to make any adjustments. I wanted to do that all post-scan. Thumbnail options, I just left that alone. Image format, I went with TIFF. That's the highest quality image format. File name, you can do whatever you want, and the folder is where I put my scans. There are advanced settings up here as well, but because I turned off the color management setting, these are all irrelevant anyway, because I'm not going to make any adjustments within this program. So after going through the settings, I selected preview, and this is pretty spot on for how the photo is going to turn out once scanned. Hitting scan, it took like a minute, and this was the end result that I got. Very disappointed. This is not what I was expecting. I tried using the film holders and scanning multiples under the same settings, and also checking thumbnail, but I got the same result, very faded, kind of blue. And if you're the type to do a lot of post-processing with your film, it really didn't seem like there was a lot of room for any kind of editing. The only thing I could think of was that the scanner hardware was inverting the colors incorrectly. So let's back up and try a different method. This time around, all the settings were the exact same, except for under document type, I chose color positive film instead. And as you can see under preview, that will give me a scan of the negative as is so that I can invert the colors manually in Lightroom. For the sake of this video, I didn't do every photo, just my favorites for this role. So starting with this scan of my car, I imported this into Lightroom, cropped it a little, and taking the white balance selector, which is this little dropper, I picked the orange border outside the photo as the target neutral, and this removed that orange mask over the film, which I need to do before attempting to restore the colors that I initially saw while I was taking the picture. Scrolling down to the tone curve, this kind of graph looking thing affects the brightness, darkness, the tones of the image. So because this negative is inverted, I essentially flipped this, dragging the highlights down and the shadows up. And you'll notice that because of the inversion, everything is backwards. That left point controls the shadows and the right point controls the highlights now. I adjusted these points so that the border reached an almost true black and that the highlights were bright but not too blown out. Like I said, I'm not going to go super in depth with this Lightroom tutorial because I actually already have several videos talking about how I edit in Lightroom, and beyond the inversion process, the rest of the edits are really just my personal taste and the colors that I remember when I was taking the photo. All I did was tweak the temperature, tint, and the blue and red channels on this tone curve before exporting, and this is what it looked like. I personally like the film borders. I think they look cool, but if that's not your thing, you can always crop it out, or you can use the film borders that come with the scanner. And I just make sure to leave a bit of that border in with the crop so I can adjust the white balance and invert the tone curve like I mentioned before. I'm sure there are a lot of different ways and methods of doing this. I know other photographers use presets or plugins like Negative Lab Pro to do their post-processing, but I've always used Lightroom for my digital photos. It's what I'm most comfortable with, and I pay for it anyway, so I might as well use it. As I went through the roll, I kept to that same process of adjusting the white balance, inverting the colors, and color correcting. I did notice a bit of dust no matter how much I tried to air blast my negatives in Scanner. I didn't do too much spot removing though, because I do prefer having a bit of dust on there. For the most part, I edited these one by one, but there was one particular strip that I edited all together just for fun. The more I went on, the more I felt comfortable manipulating the colors a bit and using the HSL sliders. But again, it was very counterintuitive because the inversion switches the color panels around. So like blue is orange, orange is blue. I didn't like messing around with it too much, kind of just wanted to go with the flow. Okay, so final thoughts. I'm definitely switching to scanning on my own. 1, I'll save a lot more money this way. 2, I like having control of the color correction. When my photo lab scans it, it's pretty much up to them to decide on the coloring, and as the person taking those photos, I like being able to correct that on my own. 3, I notice a lot more detail in the highlights of my own scans. Even though the lab probably has a much better scanner than I do, I'm able to scan as many times and at as high a quality as I can for the cost of this scanner, and I'm pretty happy with the results of this method. I'm not the best at color correcting, but I feel like I can learn as I go. Lastly, it's really fun. It's just another thing to learn and add to my journey with film. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.